How's it going? My name is Roshan C. Evans. I'm the co-founder of the Peer Justice Organization as well as book author of 3 different books. My first 2 books actually talks about how I was sucked into the system behind a false accusation with inadequate counsel and no support system, and to tell you about a lot of the issues that I personally go through. But today, we're not going to just talk to me. I have Lloyd, Bird, Joshua Sams. We're gonna talk about life in general. We're gonna talk about the George Floyds and the Eric Garners and the Tamir Rices and different situations that we go through as African American males right here in America. So this is Bird. I'm gonna let him go ahead and give you his own introduction.
Thank you, Rashad. What a wonderful introduction. This time for us to not be shy about what has been happening to us for generations. You mentioned earlier about pearls. That is one of the stones that is supposed to be adorned on the gates once we build this great kingdom together as one nation. But also another stone is the diamond. And like a diamond in the rough, you have to find it, you have to search for it, much like gold and other precious minerals. And we have lost many diamonds. We've lost many pearls. And so I am no different. I myself have been a victim of several hate crimes throughout my lifetime. Specifically hate crime because of selection of bias or prejudice. One of the first few times I had encountered prejudice in such a law enforcement embedded fashion was when I was at the University of Texas at Austin. And I was invited to go over to a party, and with a group of my friends from the dorm, we walked over to the party at a frat house, had Greek letters on it, and we got there, and it was a lot of Anglos and Caucasians there, and the 2 Caucasians that came with us were allowed to go in. One of the black girls, or girls of color, were able to go in as well, and we were asked to wait outside. Now, we all came together, and we stood outside for the tune of about 30 minutes before I'm like, hey guys, let's just go in. The door is open. Several people have just gone in, not thinking that, maybe, there was racism involved here, because this is on a school function, sort of like a school function. And so we walk in and we see the most disgraceful, condescending, most racist things you could see, more than just Confederate flags, black monkeys, with the little servant aprons on them, pictures of men in blackface, just demoralizing, totally, just completely racially unsound and not okay. So of course, myself, at the time wanted to make a statement about it. And when the police got there, because they were called because there was an altercation, they tried to kick my friends out, an Asian that was with us, and 2 Hispanic guys that were with us. And we were even an Arab guy as well, a Middle Eastern guy was with us as well. And we were all escorted out by the police and told that we can't go to that place. We can't be going to that party. Even though we were invited by members of the place, we weren't invited. And we asked why. He said because they have they can choose who they want inside. So that was the first kind of impact of that. Not to mention, excuse me there, let me turn that thing on. Not to mention, flash forward 5 years from that time, when I ran for student body president of UT in Dallas this time, I was the first person to apply for office. I paid my dues, I signed my acknowledgement forms, the bylaws, the rules of conduct, all that. By the time the article came out to list all 8 or 9 or 10 candidates who were running, even though I was the first person to sign, first one to pay my dues, my name was missing and omitted. Everyone else was listed there. The Anglo guy, the Caucasian woman, all the way through. My name was never there. And guess what day it was released? April the 1st. April Fool's Day. January 2002. But then guess what happened? Of course, I protested on campus. Others protested on campus. We went to the chancellor's office, the dean's office, went as high as the legislature, right? To talk about how that was racist. It got documented. It was in the news. So guess what? February. Guess what happened that February?
What's that?
Most outstanding African American student. Front page, Lloyd Sams. For all of February, this was circulated around campus. Only in February of that following year. The following year? So why everything was in litigation? My whole point is that was outright. They put Ku Klux Klan masks on my balcony. They put human feces on my door, written with messages saying nigger and fecal matter. They slandered my name and said that I raped some girl I never met, which I had to face charges and litigation over this. And the same time and place that this person said that I was at, I was in a study group. So I had witnesses saying where I was at, and the girl actually tried to commit suicide because the facts came out. She tried to commit suicide afterwards. She wrote a letter at her suicide death. And these are things that aren't just, nigger! Oh, but that happened too, several times. But one time I want to talk about notably was when I just came back home from living in Washington, D.C., doing some work in regards to research for autism. My mother wasn't feeling well. She had just passed away, 2004. She just passed away. So I moved back home from D.C. to Houston to live with my father. When I got home, the Christmas after my mother passed away, I'm walking out of my home, down my driveway, down the street of my home where I grew up as a child in Houston, Texas, and golf balls, several golf balls, I'm talking about hundreds of golf balls, start just throwing at me, right? Maybe not hundreds, let's say. Over time, that could have been exaggerated. Maybe like dozens of golf balls, okay? Enough for me to say, stop. Like, can you imagine golf balls the size of hail just being pelted at you? Being called a nigger at the same time. A coon inside of your own neighborhood, in front of your own house. And they have the audacity to run me over with a vehicle in a car in front of my driveway at home. And once I asked the police to investigate it, the police wanted to cover it up. Why? Because they were related to some of the people in the neighborhood who thought that way. So for the next month or 2 or 3, my family was terrorized. There was a decoy bomb placed on my father's vehicle. Our house was on 24/7 protection watch. At that moment, at that time, I had gangs, the Crips, the Bloods, the Black Disciples, even some members of M13. I even had the Nation of Islam, Fruit of Islam, wanted to protect me and come and bestow grace or whatever. I had Christian community, etc. People apologizing for what they saw. Oh, by the way, they recorded this act. The 12 or so, mostly Caucasian, who participated in this witch hunt, this lynching, this mobbing of a young black man, right? And again, in that window, and I think in this slide from David Chappelle, released on YouTube just yesterday, I believe, he says that, for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, he sees that as meaningful because he was born at 8:46. He thought about Kobe Bryant because he was born on October the 24th, right? I mean, he was born on August the 24th, 8/24. Now, that's a very sad post-traumatic stress indication when people start attributing, right, trauma or incidents of trauma attached to a date that was significant to them in a more purposeful meaning, right? So these travesties that you mentioned, like the Eric Garner, the Tamir Wright, the Khalil Castile, the Trayvon Martin, all of these things now are being video cast on for the world to see. In my case, they concealed the video in a concealment plea deal, right? But guess what happened? The sheriff and the attorney general resigned. I won't mention their name, but you look in the record book and you see who those persons' names are, and they resigned in the Harris County and city of Houston because of the racism. They were exchanging emails with comic strips of black people in blackface and with racist euphemisms and things because of the case that I have. So I am no different. I am no different than any other member of the tribes that escaped persecution from Israel, that traversed over Africa. So we've got to not only just talk about the history. I think there's enough historians, there's enough good talkers in the world, enough intellectuals and enough academics in the black community that they can teach the history. But what we need to do is focus on today the policies that we evoke in legislation and in laws and ordinances. We need to talk about how police officers, before they're even able to apply to waste the paper that they put their name on or the email that they send, they need to undergo 2 psychological evaluations, independent, from a therapist, counselor, someone who is independent to make a rather good judgment of someone's character before being a law enforcement officer. 2, you apply then after that with those 2 letters of recommendation. Just when you go to law school, when you go to graduate school, when you go to dentistry school, you go to medical school, you need letters of recommendation of people who have excelled and become successful in the field that you're trying to go into, right? More or less, right? So that's first thing, because what that does is it galvanizes the entire application process, right? So when you have an independent counsel looking at applicants coming in who have already gone through a psychological screening, first of all, it takes the liability off of the law enforcement agency or the police department or the jurisdiction in which this is going on, the city, right? So you have a better pick of the litter, so to speak. You know, they talk about these bad apples. A bad apple spoils the bunch. We know that phrase, but when people are hungry, sometimes they will eat a bad apple. When people are hurting, sometimes they will loot and riot. When people are fearful, they fight and they make mistakes, right? We know these reactions to be true. What we need to do is consciously to come together. I don't want to command the entire interview here. I want you to also ask questions, but I have so many ideas like blind arraignments, you know. When you go to see the magistrate, they sometimes either bring you in these orange scrubs or striped scrubs, and you look dejected, you look demoralized, and you stand in front of a judge or a magistrate and they're interviewing you, asking you questions, but you look bad, or they can tell that you have an accent, or they can see you're of a darker complexion than someone else, right? Mm-hmm. We should have either you can text or chat your responses to the magistrate where you can't see the person, where the case is only simply a case file name code or something that they use to identify the case, so that everyone is not just a number, but that everyone has the opportunity to have justice in the law, a blind arraignment. There's a reason why there's a statue or symbolism of justice in the country of a woman with a scale, with a weight, a scale with 2 plates on it, right? And she's blindfolded, right? It's supposed to be, I don't see color, I don't see discrimination, I don't see bias, because judges are on the bench to serve and preside over the law, right? And uphold the law of precedent, right? Or of good values, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, though, we know that the law that they're upholding is for them, right? Not for everyone, right? It's a little bit archaic in that sense. But at the same time, the reason she has a blindfold on is not to see discrimination or to see color. It's because she can't see if the two plates on the scale are balanced.
I got a question.
If you're holding the scale and you're blindfolded, how do you know that the two scales are balanced? You may think you feel it. Oh, I think it's heavier over here. No, when you get to heaven, God is going to judge you by your heart, the content of your character, what you did when no one was looking. He's going to judge you against a feather. Go ahead. I'm sorry. You had a question.
Yeah, so I got a question in regards to race inadequacies when it comes to firearms. Okay. Now, normally in our communities where we come from, we may not be financially strapped. We come from generational poverty lines. So, we don't have things like counseling or, we don't get the opportunity to go talk to a psychiatrist when we have particular issues, but yet they will throw us in special ed and consider us problem childs, which can get us a criminal record or a misdemeanor. So when we get those records, these charges, they start denying us the right to own and possess firearms, but yet continue, like when we have mental issues, and we deal with a lot of that in the color community, it's just we don't know about it because we don't have the opportunity to talk to doctors. We don't have psychiatrists. So we don't go shoot up malls and movie theaters,
churches.
And they say a lot of these people have mental illnesses. But when we have mental illnesses, they throw us in jail. So my question, since they deny us when we get criminal records and they give us criminal records when we have mental illnesses, when we need a doctor, but yet other people get doctors instead of jail. If people have a mental illness, so-called, they say, or end up eventually one day going to see a psychiatrist because they can afford it instead of going to jail or prison, do you think people who actually visit the psychiatrist or any kind of doctor for mental illnesses should be able to have access to a firearm, but yet people with criminal records because they couldn't afford a doctor shouldn't?
There are many. That's a good question and a good formulated question as well. There are many racial inequities and inequalities that come into play when we talk about labeling, bipolar, autistic, slow, retarded, whatever label you choose, or he's really bright, or he's really smart. We have to be careful of that, because when we place a label on something, and I'm mainly talking to parents and guardians of children and people who take care of children, because when you say things onto a person, when you say this child is smart but this one isn't, or this one is good when that one's bad, you almost plant a seed, right, in the child's mind that thinks, hey, well, mama thinks I'm bad, I'm gonna be bad. Mama thinks I'm good, I'm gonna be good. Or vice versa, or parent, you can use a father figure there in the same space. But more than that, I think the heart of your question is the Second Amendment, right? And the First Amendment is right, the freedom of speech and all those things, but also to defend yourself, right? If a motherfucker get out of line, right? And a lot of people can get out of line, right? A lot of people can get out of line. But when the government or police get out of line, what happens then? So as I was saying earlier, David Chappelle was speaking about how, all these people are protesting and marching and everything, and why are these people angry? But when he said an officer gets wounded in the force, officers from everywhere, all jurisdictions and regions, come to support a fallen officer that has gone down, almost like in the military, right? So when you see overwhelmingly significant occasions like the Las Vegas occasion, like Sandy Hook, like the trench coat mafia thing, when you see what happened here in Texas with Santa Fe, on and on and on and on. Most of the time, those perpetrators are of the Caucasian dissent. So when you ask about why are laws set up to appreciate those who, or a group of those who so frequently act out of treacherous and murderous acts, right? When we're not even allowed on a penal code violation called a felony case for something that may have happened as a child or 10 years or 20 years ago, to exercise my constitutional rights, to protect myself, to stand my ground, to be the king of my castle, the throne of my castle doctrine, the castle doctrine, right? To protect your home and your property. So the first property is yourself. So I'm jogging, like Ahmaud Arbery, or you're jogging, or whomever's jogging, and because they may have seen them looking or peering into a home or something that was being built, oh, they're a vagabond, or they're, so now not only do we have George Floyd, not only we have Ahmaud Arbery, not only we have Breonna Taylor, not only do we have Manuel Ellis in Tacoma, Washington, which is now under siege, the state of Washington. Not only do we have civil unrest in this country, but it's not about really arming yourself with weapons here and now. We're outnumbered in that game. We have weapons, no doubt. But the best weapon of all is love.
You know, I want to ask you a question real quick now. Now, this is something I asked myself because strategically it will make sense to me.
Okay.
But this is all inside my mind. This is just my thoughts.
That's fine.
You know, sometime in order to be, or to make people think you are the biggest and the baddest, you do things. And then if you can control the data where people have access to actually look at certain things, it seems like you'll make yourself look bigger and badder than what you really are, right? So I always hear people say, if Black America, African America, brown, coloreds wanted to go to war with Caucasians, they would lose because they have the artillery and they have more manpower. It's more of them than it is us, right? So then I go and I check the data. I say, well, how many Caucasians are in the Army or the Navy? And I'm looking these numbers up. How many Caucasians are in Texas and Michigan? And how many African Americans are, I'm just checking the data, right? And the data show that it's more numbers of them everywhere. In the Army, the military, the Navy, every single state, county, for most of them, a lot of them I should say. But is it accurate? Because if they could paint the picture that it's more numbers than what it really is, then when certain things take place, like people thinking it may be time to make a change in a particular way, when you look at numbers, you may not, because in your mind you assume that you're outnumbered when it's a possibility you just may not be.
Great point. It sounds like what you're describing is back to your former point, but it sounds like what you're saying now is the illusory notion. It's the visual effect, right, of those going or standing in line to go for mental health evaluations and for therapy and for psychiatric treatments, or for just group therapy, or maybe abuse therapy or counseling of some kind, right? To unpack. See, that famous quote that guns don't kill people, people kill people. I agree with that. I've never seen a gun just walk up and point and then shoot somebody on its own. Okay, they may have them, I haven't seen them yet. And I've gone backwards and forward in time. But what I'm trying to say, the point that I'm trying to make is that we have to do checks on everybody who gets a gun, right? Even though it's a First Amendment right? It seems as though the people who have no registry, right, of any type of a ticket, a felony, any type of criminal background over over a misdemeanor C or something, or A or whatever like that, right? You have to fill a secondary form out and all these other loops that people jump through. But I believe that everyone, first of all, has the right to defend themselves. I do believe that someone needs to go through the proper training and psychological training in order to march around in any land with a concealed or carried weapon on them, first of all. I believe that we should have some type of community policing or social justice groups that are prevalent in neighborhoods, that are composed of the neighborhood, that understand the neighborhood, because a lot of times they try to move in some corporation, some third-party corporation from New York or from Vancouver or from Chicago or somewhere else to come in and do some type of case study as though we're some type of culture specimen or something, right? So what we need to do is allow a court system, a law enforcement system, a justice system to really show justice from members of their community who reflect their peership, which in the Constitution you should be you should be judged by a jury of your peers. Your peers. A jury does not mean 5 white women, 3 white men, and 2 Mexicans. And I'm on death row, man. And I'm shit. Nobody on this jury understands my pain. I was framed. I wasn't even there. I don't even know that woman. How many falsifications, how many falsified arrests, how much falsified evidence is in warehouses that was falsified? How many people's lives? Now, another thing that Dr. David Chappelle talked about was the age range of these people who are always they're always black men or African American men or women of color, and they're almost always between the ages of in their 20s to 50. 20 to 50, that 30-year gap. That 30-year gap. Again, speaking to the 2020 minus 2000 or the 2000 minus 2020, however you look at it. Because even if you go 20 positive or if you go 20 negative, guess what the spread is? 2020. And guess what it is in the year 2020? We're getting ready to come out of this desert that we've been in for 40 years, just like the Israelis were in the desert for 40 years and 40 nights. But God eventually, like Joshua leading them and Moses leading them, brought them to Canaan, the promised land. So even though George Floyd, rest in peace, my brother, and others et al., I am no different than any of them. I think it's now time for us to demand pay parity and equal pay with increases according to the cost of living, the scale of inflation on a regular basis amongst all peoples. I think it's time for Fortune 500, Fortune 5,000 companies to open up their doors for a bigger representation of CEOs and chief suite officers that reflect their consumer base. I believe that we need to safeguard ourselves by not only COVID-19, which started in 2019, but we need to safeguard ourselves from COVID-20 and COVID-21 and COVID-22. Okay, there's so many different things that we as a people need to demand, because it's not just here in Houston or in Minneapolis or in St. Paul. It's not just in Kentucky or in Tacoma. It's also in Detroit. It's also in Chicago. It's also in Brooklyn. It's also in Wales. It's also in London. Good night, mate. What's going on, guys in Melbourne too? Sydney, I feel you. And all my Londoners from Liverpool. Hey, this is a real deal shit out here for these black folks out here in the United States. Thank you, brothers, for riding with us. And all my Italiano brothers, viva Italiano. Grazie, fratello, famiglia. Now we can go there too, mon frère, mon frère, la famille. Huh? Nous famille, s'il vous plaît, merci beaucoup. S'il vous plaît, continuez la vie révolution. I Boga Slova, Slava Boga. I'm sorry, I was starting to speak Russian and talking to all my brothers out there. Wo ani, wo chao xin zhong gong guang lai xin ji.
Going back to the demands, I think one of our demands need to be tax exempt. I mean, we was kidnapped, brought here to this country. We was forced to build this country, and yet don't have a place in this country. And we gotta fight for everything that we get, even our revenue sources. Like, we gotta fight to be business owners. We gotta fight to get a position. We gotta fight for the dollar amount we work for, and then they tax us on everything.
So back to pay parity, you know, God rest their souls and anyone else who lost a life or a loved one in the Holocaust, or anyone who has a blood connection to any of more than just the civilized tribes that the United States speaks about in their statutes, but all tribals and indigenous peoples of the New World that they found, called it Columbia, later changed it to the United States. Those people, including Japanese who arrived here from the Bering Strait through Alaska down to California and other places and other routes, and they were put into concentration camps and they were given restitution, right? Even immigrants today from El Salvador or any other oppressed place, from Rwanda or any of those tribes, the Hutus or the Tutsis that we're in fighting, we've given them a place to stay here. Even in Katrina, we show the act of showing neighborly things to people across our borders. People in Texas welcome people from New Orleans during that great travesty. We have a history around the world in America of just wanting to open up our doors and help people get onto their feet. But for some reason, like you said, the people who built this country, right, that built these state houses, these Capitol monuments, these Capitol buildings, who fought in the Civil War, who fought in the World Wars, who are fighting now in this war, have been people of color, right? And so we need to, of course, keep fighting things, but we also need to know what we're fighting for. We're fighting for equality and we're fighting for justice. And like you said, you brought up the pay thing, the pay scale. So the Me Too movement, that's another movement of people who've all gotten restitution. The women in society in contemporary times, the Japanese in the early late 1800s, early 1900s, right? Before, you know, all these people, banks and businesses get bailed out by trillions of dollars, with trillions of dollars. Just recently, a $3.2 trillion stimulus package was released to the country, and half of the people still haven't gotten their checks, first of all. And another thing, too, all of these institutions are created to do what they always have done since we were building those buildings, to keep those who were building down there building and under our control. They don't want to admit, they love to throw out the figure that for every dollar that an Anglo man makes in the United States, a woman makes 70 cents. Well, the Me Too generation kind of fixed that. So now there's about 85 cents now to $1.50 to a white man, right? But now, guess what? The African American or the woman of color is probably making about 65 to 75% of that $1.50. Where is the black man or the African American or the man of color on that scale? On that scale of justice.
We in prison.
If not dead, if not maimed, blinded, psychologically dysfunctional. But if you are able to keep marching and work on and put your uniform and go to work every day, right? If you do that, you're at least making 45 to 50 cents to that $1.50. Plus whatever black taxes you got to pay on top of that.
Right.
That's why you got to wait till Black Friday to go get whatever you want that you may be able to afford on blackout days. When they tell you it's a tax-free weekend, you can, even though I know who wrote that bill and I have much love for him, but come on now. We need a whole bunch of tax-free stuff, like a better FICO credit score. We need to be able to economically, independently and economically upgird our pursuits. Not depending on the banking system. The African American or the black people or the people of color, the others in this country, have the ability to have a banking system more advanced, more progressive, and gives more people opportunities independent of their banking system. And when I say ours and theirs, I'm talking about a system in a banking system I created called Our Company back in 2005, 2007. It's called Our Company. Operation Underground Railroad. It's built on the principles of Harriet Tubman and how she freed several slaves by having imaginary, fictitious train stations on a route to freedom to Canada and to New York, okay, in Bronx and Brooklyn, whatnot. So this whole concept is about having stations where you can barter, trade, invest in, loan to, all types of banking mechanisms and tools in this toolbox for everybody from broadcasters, from nonprofits to IT and technical people, to engineers, anyone who gets the research out, writers, and you talked about you having books. Why not be able to exhort your ideas on a platform that you don't need the bestseller, New York bestseller list to advocate, to validate your writing? I applaud Charlemagne the God, and I applaud Zane. I applaud anyone who's done that. But we need our own ability in our own community to rate what we think is connecting to our audiences. The MPAA, the Motion Picture Association of America. I know I'm giving out a lot. You go look this stuff up. But the Motion Picture Association of America, who governs what can be broadcast in movie houses or can be considered worthy as cinematic, has bylaws and codifications on how minorities should be viewed or ethnicities should be viewed in society, typecasting, stratifying where they fit in what we export. And entertainment is the number one export from the United States. It's not our oil, it's not our technology, although those are great things, or pharmaceuticals. It's our entertainment. Most of that jiggy jig music, that bumpity bump ratchet, is what sells a lot of stuff. But most of those black people and artists don't even own their own music. Prince, Michael Jackson, I can go down so many others that their music stands for the test of time, but that perpetual income from those residual royalties, they don't necessarily own that and get that. So we need to start teaching that skill and component too. So there's many things. So we need to bring up the pay scale for all people to make, truth be told, and I love all people, and I'm here for everyone, but I want everyone to understand that this is not what I would call a peaceful demonstration, because in order to meditate and in order to program your mindset to operate on a total facet of love and not retaliation or revenge, it's not easy. It's not easy to get into that place to generate love to everyone. But this is what I will say. If you put a dog in a corner and pick at it long enough, he may attack you before he barks. If you stroke a cat the wrong way, it may claw you where you did not expect. Now, we're not animals. We're not dogs and cats. We don't have 9 lives and and all of that jazz and all that superstitious stuff. But what I do know is what kind of like what was a quote said in the 1980s, which is around the time I was born. I was living in Mexico at 13, 14 years old, going to a university and going to school, and there was a quote I saw on television. It said, "We baby kids. We don't die, we multiply." So if you see the mass organized protests and organized acts of uneasiness, how long can that be peaceful, guys?
Well, if you really want change, I love my people. And when I say my people, I ain't just talking about African Americans. I love my people. People who, when it comes to change, the only way to get change, sometimes you have to actually put some elbows in it. Now, the 13 colonies didn't break away peaceful. slavery didn't end peaceful. You know, like
Civil War.
anything that we do, you know, especially when our back is up against the wall. I mean, we can only ask for so much. We can only beg and plead so much. You know, eventually, we're gonna have to get a little tough.
Well, that goes back to what I was saying. You have to become tough in your mind, right? Every day you are going to go through the hammers and the metals of life and the rigmaroles of life. Every day you will be fit with choices to make, and many people don't understand that they judge us by what our actions were, or they judge us by what our criminal record says, right? But they never investigated my options or the choices that I had in the charge that was given to me. Or did I have proper representation? Or was the law in and of itself inept, right? So that's number one. Two, you're right. Power concedes nothing without a demand. And just as though I am declaring on my name, on my family name, of who I said and what I said, whose I am and who I am, power concedes nothing without a demand. And we must constantly be renewing our minds daily so that we do not act in haste, right? I could talk about the policies that I've just been mentioning, and you know, this one. But every day since George Floyd, another video comes out in Austin, Texas, of something that happened in March. So, not only is there a need for a moment of silence, there should be a moment of reflection, not just for those who have been victimized, but also for those who have invoked pain, stress, heartache, because, you know, we're not wizards or sorcerers, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to kind of believe in karma a little bit if you've been on this planet a little bit of time, or reciprocity. The energy that you dish out, the energy that you give out, sometimes comes 5, 6, 7, 10 more times more stronger back to you. Which can greatly hurt a person in their cause. So I don't want people to be fearful and think about mobs and martial law and all of those things, because the truth of the matter, we talked about mental health. People probably are watching this thinking we're crazy, thinking I'm crazy especially. But the truth of the matter is the battle of real good and evil, the battle of war is really in the mind. In individuals' minds, in people's minds, whether it be the ruler or the peasant, the high or the low, the blue laborer or the white laborer. It doesn't matter. It should be a rule across the globe. We should be thinking international law on this, being that the sentiments are expressed and shared worldwide. Meu irmão do Placil. Do Placil, viva a salvation, Cristo Rei. That's all my folks out there in Sao Paulo and Bahia watching. Probably one day they're going to see this like, man, that's the bird walker. What's going on in Ipanema, Copacabana out there in Rio. But, y también por mis otros hermanos, los hispanos latinos, mi lucha es su lucha. Y la corazón no es necesariamente para nosotros solamente, nuestros solos, porque ustedes también tienen la fuerza. Yeah, man. So this is just, God has prepared me to stand here, to sit here today. I'm alive. Like I said before, I can still breathe. Thank God. Thank God for pure justice. I guarantee you, as long as I have air in my breath and a sense of a set consciousness on doing right, and my body can function and move, I swear by my own name alone that I will continue to fight this good fight. There's many other things I'm sure we can get into. Continue to wear your mask when you go out in social gatherings with more than 10 people. I'm an epidemiologist by trade, an investigator, an emergency disaster specialist. So by trade, I'm used to dealing with chaos, or contemplating strategy to solve problems. But the first thing, and the last thing I'm gonna say before we go, because we're about to close out, I want you to have the last word, but we need to really think about your families and your loved ones. You need to start thinking about, in case of martial law, in case of destitution and limited resources because of war, where are you going to meet? Where are you and your family and your loved ones going to congregate to meet up? You should already have a place. You should already be thinking about it. It should be armed. It should be outfit with provisions. That's food, alcohol bottles so that you can kill infection, and everything that you need to survive. But hey, thank you, Roshan, my brother, and anyone who's been listening. You can email me at thebirdwalker@gmail. That's thebirdwalker, and I don't want to leave my other friends out too. The birds. You're like, can he really talk to the birds? I don't put a lot of my videos and stuff online because I don't want to cause mayhem. It took me 2,000 years to reveal myself, guys, and I would love to meet and visit with each and every person in the world. I've probably already been communicating with you and sending out telepathic frequencies and signals, and don't think you're crazy when you feel the spirit of the word. Go look in the Bible. Go fact check what I'm saying. But here we go. And remember, I can fly high with God, but I must walk awfully low on earth so that the world can hear his message through me. So after I do this bird call, Brother Roshan, you can close it out, my man.
That's nice. That's nice. Well, again, my name is Roshan. I'm just thank you for sitting here chatting with me.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Always a pleasure when I come in your presence. Actually, continue to follow the Pure Justice. Check out our Facebook page, Pure Justice at Facebook, Instagram. It's Pure Justice _HTX at Instagram. Pure Justice _HTX at Twitter, and check out our website, purejustice.org, www.purejustice.org. And once again, thanks for chatting with you.
Oh, no problem. Oh, by the way, can I come a little
Go
bit?
ahead.
Yeah, The Bird Walker. Just look it up. Google up The Bird Walker, THE Bird Walker, and you can follow me there. I've got music. I'm also a musician. So I've got lots of stuff. Look up an album called Already Spoken For. It's got a lot of good poetic stuff on there, as well as some insights of mine on what's going on in the world. So thank you for having me again, Roshan. I appreciate that.